entire globe involving hundreds of different cultures explaining the same phenomenon by different names.
The nature of the footprints, namely their remarkable consistency, their biomechanical appropriateness, those aspects that are extremely compelling.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Bigfoot Influencers. We are so thrilled you're here. My name is Tim Halloran.
And I'm Dana Halloran, and I'm in a good mood today.
You're
I don't know what is
mood.
not as good as today.
Well, it's the holidays.
I know, and I usually hate the holidays.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. I love, the reason for the season, but I'm just like, oh, it's just so much going on.
It's a lot of
Wrapping
work.
presents, cleaning, cooking, going to parties, so, but I'm in a good mood. I'm really excited. And actually, when this airs, it's going to be Christmas Eve.
It is.
So, Merry Christmas to all. Yep. And a Happy New Year.
Hope everyone has a safe and joyous and a holiday season and enjoys their family.
Yep.
And you're cooking some good stuff.
I'm making lasagna bolognese. That's the way that I get everybody to come home for Christmas. So everybody's coming home, and those who don't come home, they don't get no lasagna.
Yeah,
okay. So no, I'm going to take some back for blah, blah, blah. If they didn't come, they ain't getting none. So that's kind of how I roll with it.
And where'd you learn how to make your lasagna?
When I lived in Italy.
All right. It's the best, guys. It's our guest, after listening to this, maybe he'll make a trip over for the
Yeah, I'm a jack of all trades and only a master at one thing, and that is lasagna bolognese. So.
Well, I'd say you're master at more than that, but the lasagna is
master? No.
Phenomenal.
I kind of rock a lot of stuff, but lasagna,
it's crazy.
That's my thing.
We fight over it, trust me. But anyway, make sure you guys head on over to the Untold Radio Network, like and subscribe, share the good word, go to thebigfootinfluencers.com. You can check us out on all the socials and keep up with what we're doing. We appreciate you guys. We've had some great guests. We've got a lot of stuff coming up here in the future. We're going to bring on some of the folks that are putting on Squatch Fest. So which we'll be attending in a few weeks, next month. And we're going to do an episode just to talk about the history of it. It's been around a long time, and we're probably going to bring in one or two of the guests that are speaking there, plus the event organizer. And that should be fun.
Yeah, I can't wait to go.
And yeah, there'll be a lot of, we're going to catch up with a lot of good people there.
We are.
So I think.
And we get to stay in a cozy little cabin. Maybe a Bigfoot will knock on our window or something.
Yeah. So, but we've got a really, really, really cool guest.
Yeah.
I'd say. Yeah, definitely.
Very cool.
So Tate Hieronymus is going to join us, and Tate's just a refreshing member of this community. Always a positive attitude, always looking for exploring answers, doing due diligence, and he's the younger, I'd say, I hope he doesn't mind us saying, the younger generation. He's younger than us, so anyone younger than us is, and which is nice. So let's bring Tate in, and we're going to hear all about him.
Hey Tate, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. How are you? So Tate, are you is he a young? What? Are you a young man? Like, because you look young, but I see a little bit of gray going on.
Yeah, it's kind of, I've always had gray in my hair since I was younger, like even 19.
Okay, well, it's very sophisticated looking.
Yeah, it's natural. It's not done on purpose.
Oh, well, let's hope not.
Like me, my
Tim
hair,
does that. I do his hair. I get little foils in there and make sure I get it to the perfect gray.
Yeah, I wish.
Right.
I do cut his hair, which I just did yesterday. Look at that fade. That's pretty good, right? For an amateur?
Yeah.
You do a good job.
I would say so.
Yeah. So anyway, how you doing today?
Oh, I can't complain. Just kind of just doing my thing, enjoying my Saturday,
Good. Well, we're thrilled
chilling
you're here.
with us, which we're happy to have you, honey. Absolutely. So Tate, where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Midwest. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri originally. Then I moved to Iowa in 2000, lived there for 11 years. And then kind of, then my family and I ended up moving to Mexico, Baja Peninsula, lived in Ensenada for 3 years.
Ooh.
And then up to California, back to the Midwest and now down here in Florida. So it's kind of where I've been growing up. So I've been growing up all over the place.
You have. What a cool experience to live in Mexico. How was that?
It was different. It was definitely a culture shock because, coming from the Midwest to not only the West Coast, but to the West Coast in another country. So you're dealing with mountains. And I'd never even visited California before then, So moving there was like kind of a culture shock to be like, oh man, we're in a desert type environment with mountains and I don't speak the language. So, but
did you ever learn how to speak?
I tried, but I never mastered anything. I never did understand the language. Yeah, it's a hard language sometimes, which is funny because it's like fairly easy too. In a weird way.
Yeah.
Of the languages, yeah.
Yeah. But unless you're speaking every day and,
right.
around people who are speaking it and finding yourself having to speak it. I mean, we're so lucky being Americans that we speak English as our mother tongue because English is pretty much like the number one second language in the world.
It's also the most confusing language in the world, I would say, because there's so many words that are spelled the same, but they have different meanings and they're pronounced the same too. It's like, okay, that doesn't make sense.
And read and yeah.
Yeah. I used to teach English as a second language. So yeah, it's really hard to, people are just like, why do you have to, you know what? I don't know. I just know that you're going to have to learn that. Okay. But yeah, it's confusing and 100% agree with you.
How long did it take you to kick into the Italian language before you really
See, I was forced because
how long did it take for you to feel comfortable speaking it?
I would say a year.
Okay.
Of living
but you had
there.
this.
I had to, because I worked there, and nobody was gonna speak English for me. So yeah. But yeah, I was kind of forced into it. So, and I was also in my early 20s, when my brain was still kind of fresh. So I don't know if I could do that now.
Exactly. So Tate, outside of, obviously we're on a Bigfoot podcast. Mm-hmm. Outside of the subject, what are your interests? What else do you get into?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love music. That's another thing of mine. I grew up around music. He's not really my uncle, but he's known me for so long. But he's a producer out of Des Moines, and he's worked with some people, and then his nephews were really good friends of mine, and we always played music together all the time. So I'm always going to shows and stuff like that, and music is another thing of mine. And outside of music, I like filmmaking. That's another passion of mine. I think it's really cool. I'm always wanting to watch movies, and the older I get, the more I pay attention to like the cinematography and everything in a movie. And I have my favorite like movies that have really good cinematography, and usually those directors of the movies that I like, they always pick good cinematographers. Steven Spielberg is one of them, and J.J. Abrams. He has some good cinematographers that work for him, and then Stanley Kubrick is another one.
Yep.
And so I always pay more attention to the cinematography nowadays than the actual film sometimes.
I can definitely say I can even appreciate a cinematography, like being like, oh my God, the movie totally sucked as far as like the storyline and the actors, but the cinematography was like amazing. I think people like tend to be like, oh, that movie sucked. Well, you know what? There's other aspects of the movie that were probably really good. Don't make everybody suffer just because an actor was bad, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. No, it's just one of those things, like a movie can suck, but the cinematography can be good. But I really like it when everything is good. And it's like even a powerhouse kind of a movie. It's like, man, that just hits.
That doesn't happen very often anymore, though, unfortunately.
And the third element is the music.
The score is another thing. For me too. Okay, I'm always like love watching like behind the scenes stuff, and I find it really cool how they come up with sounds for movies. Well, like Jurassic Park, like they had recorded different elements to make like the T-Rex sounds that you hear in the movie, like it walking and everything. And it's cool when you hear how they do it. Basically what that is Foley work. The Foley artist, they'll go into the studio and then they'll like replicate like walking on snow. So when you watch a movie, the sounds that you actually hear in a movie aren't really what they filmed on, like when they were filming the scene. That's not the sounds, because they have to go back and re-edit, because when you're actually filming in like an environment like outside, you have like cars and people talking and everything, and you can't really keep that in the film, so you got to go back and re-edit for sound and all that. So I think Foley work is pretty cool, but like how they Foley work is, that can either kill or break a movie, in my opinion, sometimes.
So Tate, because we definitely want to get into filmmaking, because I know that's your forte, but what got you interested in the subject of Bigfoot?
Oh, just being weird. Having nothing to do as a kid, and then too much time on YouTube. That's when, like, I think when it was kind of when Monster Quest came out is when YouTube was actually kind of a new thing, I would say. And so, you're kind of looking at scenes from Monster Quest, and then Patterson-Gimlin film was like really popular because of Monster Quest 2, or at least it made it more popular than it has been. And so it's like, man, watching the Patterson-Gimlin film, that's what really got me interested, is that film right there. And then
I just want to do a shout out to the weird kids.
Oh.
Yep.
Because guess what? I was a weird kid too. Like I sat at the weird kid table at in the cafeteria. People always like, Dana, were you like a cheerleader or like no, honey, I was a weird kid. And were you? No, you weren't a weird kid. You were like a sports kid, right?
Yeah, but I hung out with everybody. I probably had more non-jock friends just because I liked people who were open and different.
Yeah.
And then I found myself gravitating toward, I could get along with everybody, but I just gravitated more towards people that were open-minded and not, I don't want to say superficial, but
Yeah,
No,
but just
I
like
would-
fun and
I would use the
experimental.
word superficial.
Yeah,
That's
and
just
Monster Quest, Tate. I mean, our friend Doug Highcheck, obviously has been an influence in so much, and I think Monster Quest was such a top of mind. It was
It was an influential show.
Yeah.
I think it influenced
Yep.
and inspired a lot of people
Mhm.
for sure.
Well, I think
Because it
people
wasn't catchy,
my age kind of gravitated towards Monster Quest, because then you had like In Search Of, which is before my time. Like, so we were talking about age earlier. I'm 30, and so when I was like 10 or 11 or whatever around that time, Monster Quest is kind of new, and
Mhm.
so I think the people in my age group, it would have to be like Monster Quest and Finding Bigfoot would be the second show that people my age kind of gravitated towards. And an older generation below or before me would be like In Search Of and different stuff like that.
Right.
And did you know, and most people do, but a lot of folks don't, so Mysterious Encounters was another show that was produced by Doug Highcheck. So it was kind of like the first
Mm-hmm.
prequel to Finding Bigfoot, which is really cool. Yeah, and I think I don't know if it went a season or two, but I think Matt Moneymaker and Bobo, and there's some other folks on the show as well. But I don't know if you've ever checked that out, but it's worth. You can only find it like on bootleg copy, I think, on YouTube. But,
Yeah,
so I'm not suggesting you guys watch that, but on bootleg version. But that was pretty cool too.
So Tate, you got interested in Bigfoot. And so like what was like your first thing that you did? Like what, like, because obviously you're really into that world right now. But I mean,
Man.
like, were you going out in the woods? Were you just watching more videos? Were you going to conferences?
So it's funny because like I said, I kind of bounced around, moving everywhere, and I moved to Iowa in 2000, and I wasn't, I didn't have a license or anything because I was still a kid, and I wasn't really into Bigfoot at the time. And then even moving to Mexico, it's a very sparse area. I was already interested in Bigfoot, and then by the time we moved to Mexico is when Finding Bigfoot came around, because I think it was 2010 is when it actually started airing, and I moved in 2011. And so I was like, man, I really want to go. And then being interested in the Patterson-Gimlin film, I knew that was in California, and we were only a few days drive from the film site, the famous film site. And then it wasn't until we moved to California that I actually made it more of a plan to try and drive up there. And ended up going up there for my first time in 2015. And that was a pretty cool experience. Didn't get to make it to the film site until like my third trip back up there, because it's actually pretty challenging to find. But no, I kind of, 2016, I just kind of started going in the woods. 2015, I mean, I started going in the woods, and that was just kind of my first introduction to actually field work, or my first thing going into field work. Because before that, I was just trying to learn as much as I can at home, like a lot of people do in the beginning. And so from there, it kind of snowballed. I kept going back up there. I joined the Bluff Creek Project, met those guys, Robert, Rowdy, Kip, Steven Struford, all those fine gentlemen. And then eventually met Cliff and Bobo up there. Got to meet those guys. And then, just kind of snowballed from there. Just been going out more and more, and just kind of getting more acclimated to the woods, more used to being out at night without lights. That can be a little intimidating. And then conferences. Yeah, I never really went to conferences. I've never been much of like a people person and like crowds, so I just never really went to them. And
there's a lot of people at them too. And you do get, even me, who's an extrovert, I get peopled out after these conferences. So I can imagine it being a struggle. Mm-hmm.
I can't do it. Like, it's funny. Well, I go to concerts, and stuff. But the thing is, I like to drink at a concert, and I just don't want to drink too much at a Bigfoot conference to feel like not stressed out in front of a bunch of people. So it just, and plus, I'm just kind of busy doing a lot of other stuff, and so that's kind of where I'm at. But I did go to the only conference I did go, I was with Alex and Eli doing a Beyond the Trail episode, and it was the Ocala one. It was like last year, I think. We went there because we were filming that. And then I went to the 50th anniversary, like, I don't even want to say it was a conference, but you can kind of say it was a conference. It was like the 50th anniversary. It was the 50th anniversary for the Patterson-Gimlin film. So I went for that and everything, and that was pretty cool.
That would be cool. So how did you meet the group at the Bluff Creek Project?
So yeah, it was my, what was it, third time going up there. Because I know, I can't remember if I reached out to them, or I think I was talking to Steven Struford on Facebook, and he's like, yeah, we do this camp out, once or twice a year, July and October. And so I was like, I'm going to go up there. And I went up there, and it was July of 2017. I think so. No, yeah, 2017. And then I just went up there, and first guy that I met was Robert Leiderman. Ranger Robert Leiderman, because he's a retired forest ranger up there. So he was the first one I met, and then like Rowdy Kelly came, and he was another guy, and kind of just talking to them, and more times going up there, because I went in October too when I lived in Ventura, so I would go twice a year. So I just kept going up there with those guys, and eventually kind of found my place in the group and became like a member, more or less. Cool. There was no what there's no, what is it when you like go into a group? They usually have like some kind, I'm trying to think of the word. There's
initiation.
Yeah, there's no initiation thing, or you have to go through jumping hoops or anything like that.
Requirements?
Yeah, no requirements.
Okay, cool.
So, I just kind of kept going up there, and you got to know them pretty well, and that's how I became part of that group, and I'm still a member of the group to this day.
Yeah, well, not a bad group of people to be around
for your first group. Yeah.
Yeah. So
good job there.
For the audience that does not know, we've had Robert on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Tell the audience about the Bluff Creek Project then, and if you can kind of just give a snapshot of who they are, what they do.
So yeah, the Bluff Creek Project, at first it was kind of started by Steven Struford, Robert Leiderman, and Ian Carton, and the whole goal of the project was to find the Patterson-Gimlin film site, which I think spent about a year doing that. And like when finding Bigfoot, there was a 2-hour episode. I don't think you can't buy it anywhere. I looked for it everywhere. But they went to the Patterson-Gimlin film set with Bob Gimlin, and that was after they kind of, confirmed that was the actual site, was when that episode was shot. So that was 2011. And so they ended up finding the film site and confirming it. And so that was their initial goal. And then now they were kind of like, hey, let's put some trail cameras down here and see if we can get a Bigfoot on camera again, see if there's anything down here. So, but unfortunately, nothing yet for Bigfoot on camera, on the trail cameras. But they ended up getting pictures.
They learned their lesson. They learned their lesson there at Bluff Creek.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever that girl was, she ruined it for everybody.
Patty.
Yeah. They were
Patty.
like, Patty, what the freak are you doing, girl? Were you just
Dang, Patty.
to say the F word? Oh, I think he was.
Yeah.
Dang, Patty. Like, you're supposed to hide from the cameras. Hello.
Right. And so because of doing that, they ended up like getting pictures of like the Humboldt Martin up in that area, which they thought, I think a lot of people thought they were extinct in that area, but they ended up showing like, no, they're not. They're still here.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, it's pretty
cool.
That
was a good thing. At least that happened.
Yeah.
So I got an not off the wall question, but do you have a funny story that happened with that group? Just something that random that happened that you could share? That's just kind of made you laugh.
I got a lot of funny stories. I don't know which ones
I'm sure you do.
I don't know which one I'm going to share though. I don't know which ones you guys have probably heard.
Just go for it.
Oh man, I don't.
He's trying to think one that's like that can be.
I'm trying to think one that's not like embarrassing that hasn't been told, but oh man,
I think you should have prepped him for this.
What is wrong with you?
No, you do this, Tate. We'll move on to the next question. Oh, you got one?
I'll think of one while you guys
think about it. You think about it. So have you ever had an experience? So whether it be visual, audio,
I think my first time to Bluff Creek, something walked around our tent one night, and I did end up getting audio, but I really can't say for sure those were whoops, but they really do sound like them, and it did sound like knocks. And then on the audio, you can hear something walking around our tent, and
okay.
It was kind of weird. So I don't know, I can't really say for sure what that was, but was it 2016 in October? I was with a buddy of mine in Southern California, just outside of Ventura where I live. We were in the mountains and I was, okay, actually, no, what happened was a year earlier, 2015, I tweeted Cliff. I was like, hey, Cliff, where should I go near Ventura, California? And he's like, hey, go to this area. So a friend of mine was visiting from Iowa, so I was like, hey, you want to go camp with me for a night? So he ended up coming with me, and we got to the spot that Cliff recommended. There was a gate that was closed, so we ended up kind of walking up the road, and I found like this footprint in the ground. It looked like a human foot, and I just took a picture of it with my foot next to it. I didn't have a tape measure. That was actually like kind of my first time trying to look for Bigfoot, so I didn't have any gear or anything like that. I didn't have a tape measure, and so I kind of sat on that picture for a year. When 2016 rolls around, and I tweeted Moneymaker the track that I found. I was like, hey, I found this track. I didn't know if he'd be interested. And then he actually replied. He's like, yeah, I'm very interested, and I want to speak to you because I'm meeting other people out there in the general area that you found this track in, and I want to meet with you. So we ended up meeting a bunch of other people, and then our spot was the last spot we went to. I had my good friend with me, and we got to the spot. We kind of looked around. Then we continued driving up the mountain, and then Matt was like, yeah, if you go down this road and you camp there, that's a good, decent spot. So me and my buddy, after everybody left, we kind of went to that spot that Matt referred us to. And we weren't there for that long. We got everything set up. We were hanging around. And I think it was around like 9:25. We kind of walked down the trail from where our car was. And there was this dead tree, and I wanted to do a knock. And so I did a knock, but the sound was not that good. So I do 2 whoops, one whoop one way and one whoop the other way. And I had my first FLIR that I've ever had. I was really excited to use it. And, I wasn't really thinking anything was going to happen. And so after I did the whoops, I heard a whoop respond back to mine. I was like, okay. And so I was like, dude, I was telling my friends, like, I heard this whoop. So we actually backtracked the trail to like this little overlook over the ridge. We're kind of scanning and we see this eye shine, but we're seeing lights. We're kind of looking. We're like, dude, how far is that away? It looks like it's 50 feet. And so that's when I actually start filming on the FLIR. And that was my first time out. And I couldn't see what was on the thermal. And so we still had headlamps on. So that's why we're seeing eye shine. And so I point the FLIR down and I look, and I was like, okay, it's still there. And I bring it back up. My friend does a couple of calls. Then he's like, dude, it's gone. And then we actually walked back to the car and we kind of like got our nerves settled down. And we actually ended up walking back there to where we thought it was standing. And we couldn't find anything. And we walked back to our car and we're like, man, let's go camp somewhere else and everything. We were kind of like on edge. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I would have done things differently. I would have stayed and filmed longer, but it is what it is.
It's amazing how like that natural instinct as a human being, like it overcomes your rational thinking. Like you're really looking for Bigfoot. And you see a potential Bigfoot 50 feet away, and then you're like, let's get the heck out of here. Yeah.
I really wanted to stay there. Like we had a camp set up and everything, and I really wanted to stay there. And then, there's things that knowing that I know now, I would have done a lot differently. I would have not listened to him. I would have kept filming because that's like a good rule of thumb if you're ever in that situation. And then I would have camped there that night. But, it's funny because you say you're going to do things, and then when you're in the moment, that's a whole different scenario. And so
that's exactly what I was trying to. Yeah, my point is that your fear or uncomfortability or your whatever was like, I know you want to see Bigfoot, but let's go home and be safe.
It was the weirdest thing, and it was funny because that day there was so many deer. It was actually hunting season up there too, and there was so many deer that like I lost count of how many deer, and it was crazy because on our podcast, the Bluff Creek Project podcast, Robert interviewed Bart Catino about his thermal video up in the Sierras. And then Bart made an interesting comment too. And I texted Bart like after I was like, dude, this is the same thing that happened with me. Bart was like, yeah, there was a lot of deer that day. Like a lot. I'm thinking, man, that makes a lot of sense. And so it was like, it was just kind of interesting to hear that because that the day, I potentially filmed one, there was a lot of deer. And like when you watch the footage, it's not like the best footage ever. It's not a smoking gun. And the footage by itself doesn't like hold any water. It's like, okay, that's just a blob squatch. But then when you have like my testimony and then my friend's testimony that was there, and then you actually see the area, what it looks like, even from a drone or satellite, it makes a lot more sense. And I personally think it was a younger one because the thing was when I did the whoop and we were walking back to the ridge, we had our lights on. We weren't like stealthy at all. So this thing made us before we made it. And then when we shined our lights on it, we were seeing the lights in the background. Then we were seeing eye shine. So I don't know if it froze out of fear because we were looking at it. And there's no way it could see us what we were doing because it had lights in its eyes. So I don't know. It's one of those things. I tend to think it was a younger one. I don't think it was an adult. I just think this one had more guts and wasn't as afraid or timid. So, but we ended up measuring roughly the distance, and it was about 300 feet. Okay. Which because I was using a FLIR Scout TK, which the range is about 100 yards, 300 feet. And that's why it's so blurry. And if I had like a really good FLIR, it would have been a lot better.
So you thought it was 50 feet, but in actuality, it was 300 feet.
Yeah, because like I've never seen the area during the day, and it's like 9:30 at night, and it was actually kind of cold, and I was like, hey, let's just go do this. And my friend was like, no, he doesn't want to. He's actually a skeptic too. And so he was just kind of humoring me. And, during the encounter, I was like really excited, but at the same time, like had a lot of fear and anxiety, like 3 different emotions going on at the same time. And then he's like, Tate, what is that? I'm like, dude, I'm pretty sure we're looking at what we think we're looking at. And so it's just one of those things, we thought it was 50 feet, but it ended up being like 100 feet. And so, or 300 feet, I mean. So it was just one of those things that I wish I could redo, but I'm never going to be able to redo it. And, that might be the only time in the rest of my life that I get that opportunity. So just one of those things. It's what keeps me going out in the woods.
So here's a question. So after that experience and probably some other experiences that you've had, how convinced are you that Bigfoots actually exist?
I'm pretty convinced. I'm 95% convinced. Mm-hmm. It's funny. I was just in California this past July with some friends doing some stuff, making some documentaries of my own. And we were in Bluff Creek for almost 3 to 4 weeks. And after 4 weeks of not really getting anything, it's kind of like depressing. You spend all this money and time. And then in a way you really think to yourself, because I talked to my friend Ron, and we were like, dude, sometimes you ask yourself, like, when you're out here, do these things actually exist? Because when you're doing stuff at night and you get nothing for like a whole month, it makes you wonder. But then you look back on like the experiences you did have, and even in the same area, like, dude, these things are real. And then plus you also think about how big the forest actually is. You're only in like a small sliver of a forest. They could be anywhere. So, but sometimes you do ask yourself, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why do I even believe in this?
Right. Well, and Tate, you mentioned something which I think is important. You sometimes you can't take one piece of evidence. You got the thermal, but when you look at the big picture, it's hunting season. Probably there's no one animals are probably more scarce. They're scared of hunters, and there's not going to be someone running around the woods, and you're in a remote area, and you piece all, and then you had the audio, you piece all the pieces of evidence together, and that's what makes it more compelling. So I agree with you there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the other thing is too, no one, because it was hunting season, I don't see anybody pranking us because, whether or not they knew we had a gun or not, that'd be kind of a dumb thing to do. And so I don't believe it was a human. The other thing, the eye shine, like how do you get people's eyes don't glow unless you held like 2, like lights up that were actually yellow in color. So if you had 2 yellow lights, I don't see that happening either.
So would you say it was eye shine, or did it seem like there were 2 lights there? Not like,
no, it was definitely
lights,
it was definitely eye shine for sure, okay. 100%. Because I don't think if we had our lights on, we would have seen it. I only had the lights on because, I didn't expect anything to happen, and also, in Southern California, even in the cold, I don't want to chance it. There's rattlesnakes up there. So I don't really want to be stepping on a rattlesnake when I'm way up on this mountaintop. And so I was just kind of watching our step. And then when we saw the eye shine, we weren't even thinking about it. We were kind of, just tunnel visioned on what we were seeing at the same time. So I think our headlamps were just an afterthought at that point.
Wow.
Yeah, that's wild. That's definitely wild. So what would you, just an opinion, because nobody knows, if you had it, do you have a theory on what you think they may be?
I think they're just flesh and blood. I don't think they're anything more than that. I mean, I think they're intelligent for sure, more intelligent than like your normal wildlife. And if you're talking about an ape species, apes are pretty smart in general. And what you can like train an ape to do, like in the zoo, I mean, you can get apes to do puzzles and stuff. I mean, it's pretty smart thinking, more than a bear or deer can do. So I think they're definitely of higher intelligence of your known wildlife. But I don't think they're anything beyond that really. I know there's
So where
like
do you
people
think they
who,
came from? Like, do you think they're a relic hominid or?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, like until you actually have one to study, um, I don't know. I mean, for me personally, I'm not going to say what it is or what I think it could be, as far as like a relic hominid or what, because I don't know. I haven't really studied too much, so it'd be ignorant for me to say whether or not it is or not.
Good
But as
answer.
far as
Good
like,
answer.
flesh and blood or, interdimensional, I think it's flesh and blood. So
Definitely.
that's just my
So
take.
right. So let's talk about. So you have a project. You have a YouTube channel, and you do that's. I shouldn't just limit it to a YouTube channel, but you're a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
So you have what you're working on now is called the search for Sabe. Is that correct? Is that how you
Yeah,
pronounce it? Right.
that's kind of my new series. I think my precursor to that was actually 2021 when I was with Alex and Eli and Ron and Jonathan. We were doing Alex and Eli were going to do that was their second Beyond the Trail episode was in Bluff Creek, and they ended up meeting up with me and we did that, and I kind of filmed my own thing. It was called Uncovering the Truth of Sasquatch. So I kind of made that. That was like my first actual good documentary that I did. And that was like the precursor to the Sabe stuff. And so I think it was 2022. I ended up getting a better camera. Pretty much the same camera setup that Alex and Eli are using.
So what is Sabe? I'm sorry.
So
What
yeah,
does it stand
Sabe.
for?
That's the question I get all the time. Like, what is that? So I wanted, with television, there's not a lot of truth in it anymore, and stuff like that. There's a lot of hoaxing and different things. And so I was watching Survivor Man Bigfoot when he was in the Bluff Creek. He went to Bluff Creek for one of the episodes, and he was talking about Sabe. He was in Manitoba, Canada, and among the natives up there, they have what's called the 7 teachings, and within the 7 teachings, there's different animals, and each animal has a different attribute. So, like one animal can represent courage or strength, but Sabe is also the other name for Bigfoot, and
Okay.
Bigfoot or Sabe represents honesty. And so what you see in my documentaries is what actually happened. I don't sugarcoat it. I don't try and tease anything. It is what it is. I'm trying to be biased as possible, or unbiased, however you want to look at it. And so, yeah, I really wanted to do Sabe, but nobody knew what Sabe was. So I think a lot of people like Jeremiah and Ron and Jonathan, like, you should put Bigfoot in the name somewhere. So I did Sasquatch, a search for Sabe. So it's like, okay, it has Bigfoot, Sasquatch in the name, but it has the name Sabe in it too. So that's kind of where
The
that
reason
came
you
about.
have to do that, what people don't realize is that, people search Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And so if it's not
Yep.
somewhere in your title, they're not going to know what your show is all about. And it's really important for people to know that.
Yeah, for sure. And I like the name Sabe. If I can bring one name and make it popular or at least known again amongst like the Bigfoot community, that'd be kind of a huge thing. And I think I'm moving in the right direction so that name can be a lot more known. Because it's not, because like when you ask a lot of
you know
people,
what
I think
it is now?
Yep.
yeah, it's like the majority of people don't really know what it is, and which is weird even in the Bigfoot community. You would think, but not really.
Right,
So
because I mean, every native, every native culture had their own name for them. So, and there's a lot. I've got a couple books on that, on just the names. So,
yeah.
So it's important. I think I love it. It's just it goes back to the history and what you get, and just appreciate your take on filmmaking. I love that it's more documentary. It's really really cool and honest and upfront. So
And the honest thing, is so important because it's hard to do that in TV. And because
yeah,
people watch TV, they want to be entertained. They want to be entertained. They want to, have a big build up to something, so it's, it's hard to do a show without some kind of like, I'm not going to say fabrication, but just elaboration of some
yeah,
kind.
No, it's
Mm-hmm.
true because for only like for finding Bigfoot, none of those guys really had too much creative control. It was all producers and everything that did it. But like
Mm-hmm.
Cliff has even said before, they got pretty lucky in the position that they were in. They had a lot more freedom and somewhat creative control in a way that a lot of other TV shows don't have. And so, yes, as far as like finding Bigfoot being a television show, it was actually truthful because, like, as Cliff has said it, and then I know people like some of the Bluff Creek guys have worked on it, and so yeah. And the thing with YouTube is, you're your own boss if you're making films. There's no time constraint. There's no producer telling you what to do or what to say, and so it's like, then at the end of the day, when you film something, okay, I think now it depends on the person's integrity if they're gonna try and allude to something being there that it's not. And that can be done in narration and everything and in editing and stuff like that. And it's like, you know what? As painful and boring as it may be, that's what I want to show is how boring it is. Because there's some scenes in my
But you can
film.
still, mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's like
You
some
can
scenes
still
in my
make it
film.
interesting. Yeah.
Right. You don't have to make it
Mm-hmm.
boring. You can make it
Right.
like, you could do somewhat entertaining stuff. But I like the boring aspect because it shows that it's actually boring work. It's not like on TV where it's all exciting, where you're always
Yeah,
getting
actually, I think I
something.
remember watching a behind the scenes, which you love because you were just mentioning that a behind the scenes on, and I've mentioned this before on, I don't know if it was like one of those documentaries that you'll see on the Discovery Channel about like our planet or something, and it took like a month and a half for a dude to get an actual footage of a snow leopard because
Yeah.
they're so elusive, compared to what you guys are dealing with out in the field with Bigfoot. It's probably a little bit better, obviously, but I mean, he was camped out for like a month, like under like a little camouflage tent, spending like all his days just waiting
Right.
for. So it's those things, that you have to go through in order to put up something
100%.
interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like there was 2 episodes ago. It was like the Bluff Creek Part 2 episode that I released. No, Part 1, I mean, of the new ones. And there's like a whole part we're trying to decide where to put the blind. There's probably like 4 minutes of us just talking about, oh, we should put the blind here. No, I think we should put it here because this and that. And you know what? That's actually what goes on. Like if you're going to make a really entertaining show, then you probably won't put that in. But that's
Right.
actually what goes on behind the scenes. And so
But
I want
it's
to
important
incorporate
that you're
it.
showing that, especially for other researchers, because they're probably, taking some advice on where you are putting the blind. Do you know what I mean?
No,
So
yeah,
that would be,
100%.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like, it kind of shows you, okay, it's not just about going out there and, yelling in the woods and looking through a therm.
Right.
There's actually some, methodical, thoughts that go into this. There's a lot of planning sometimes. And it's just, how do we make it work? How can we be interesting? How do we do this that way and without being seen or whatever?
Yeah.
All right. So tell the audience what your movies are about, just high level. If you can kind of give a snapshot of what you do, what it's about, what they can expect if they watch it.
So yeah, like the SABE series, just kind of just a camaraderie of guys that I work really well with. Jonathan Easley from Western Bigfoot Exploration. He's a really cool dude. Ron Man Reed, Trailing Giants. And I knew those guys before I met Alex and Eli, but they're kind of the 3 guys, mainly Ron and I, kind of the guys who do the SABE stuff. And, just expect just kind of like really cool, good friends doing what they do really weirdly in the woods. And that's the other thing, we try not to be very superficial. There's that word again from earlier, superficial Bigfoot researchers, because I think there's too much of that. And the idea is to play on Bigfoot curiosity. And so that's what we want to do. We want to like do laser lights in the show or like in the woods. I mean, and let's just play music or flutes or whatever, just do stupid stuff that's safe, to try and play on their curiosity to bring them in, because obviously it's at a point sometimes where knocks and whoops will only get you so far. It's like, okay, we did that. Now let's do like laser shows. Let's have like a boombox. Let's have a rave. Let's like watch movies in camp. Be interesting. And so that's kind of what
and
we
that's actually
incorporate a lot
cool
more of that.
because I think most people who, outside of researchers who have an experience, are just sitting around the campfire, roasting marshmallows, laughing, chatting, doing what people do when they're camping or out in the woods. And so that's a great idea, Tate, to just, just have fun doing what
You do,
what you
yeah.
do, and you might make one curious.
Well, I was talking to Paul Graves about that, and he's like, playing guitar is always good because it's a new sound.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like thinking, like, man, but we should be playing movies on like a projector and everything, because guitars are one thing. I'm sure, like, if there's a lot of, if you go to a spot that Bigfoots are at and you're always playing guitar, it's gonna be a new, like a familiar sound. But if you're like watching movies on a projector, like, what's going on over there?
Especially Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
Because the Sasquatch will be like, what the heck is that thing?
Yeah,
I hope that thing doesn't show up in my
that's a good
woods.
movie. And so it's like we always think of like new ideas. How do we like try and do different things that nobody's really doing before? And so actually one idea, I don't know, I can't prove it, but there's a certain show I'm not going to say the name of, but they did steal my idea that I think they did. It was, I don't know, did you guys watch the Beyond the Trail Oregon episode?
I could think so. With
Yeah.
I think so. I think we saw that.
Yeah.
So there was a part in there where I came up with this idea. I was like, dude, you should put the pheromone chip under the drone and use the rotors from the drone to kind of spread that smell around. Because if you had like even like the DJI Mavics, not like the Mavic, but even the Mavic Mini, yeah, but he was using like a DJI Mavic Pro or something. But even if you stand under the fan of that, if you have a drone stand like above you, like a foot, that's like, it feels like a powerful fan blowing air on you. And so if you ever smelled one of those pheromone chips, that's a nasty smell. And so the idea was to have that fan blow the smell down. So Alex flew close to the trees, and it was actually kind of sketchy because like it was on a string and like this, it kept swinging back and forth. So I was like thinking it was going to get caught in the rotor and the drone was going to crash.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because where do you get the pheromones from? What kind of animal is that coming from?
So it's, what is it? It's human and ape scent basically
Mixed together.
Yeah.
Pheromones.
And it was,
Okay.
was it something Bamanek? What's his name? I forget his name. And then Doug Hychek. John Bamanek and Doug Hychek, I think, got those for Alex.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, because he was using them in Bluff Creek, and then I was like, it's funny because if you camp with me in the woods, I'm kind of like clown. Like, you think of Eli, but way worse and unfiltered. And so the whole time I keep saying dumb, stupid stuff, and they're like, Tate, what are you doing to say now? And I remember opening my mouth, and they were getting ready to like, Tate, what are you going to do? I was like, guys, what if you just tie the thing to the drone? I'm like, oh my God, that's a great idea. Sometimes
So you're
great
a problem
ideas.
solver. I like that. You're a problem solver. That's a very important trait to have.
I tried to be a problem. Here's my philosophy. If you come up with enough ideas that even if they're bad, you're going to have eventually one good idea.
Yep.
If you don't try it, you're not going to get it. So you got to try.
Yep.
So we ended up doing that, and that was pretty cool. I felt pretty happy about that.
I think Les Stroud did that too in one of his episodes too. Not with obviously with a drone, but he had tried pheromones.
Okay.
I think
where he got them
I think that was in a I want to say he was in Canada with some researchers up there, and he was putting some pheromone chips on a tree, a couple of areas. It might be a different episode. I know there was one he was doing like different stations. He had like one with like a DNA chip that he put in the ground and kind of buried. He had one with like wind chimes, and a grouse cam right there. Then he did a pheromone chip here. He was doing like he called it the shotgun approach. He was doing just different things in different areas to see what's going to work. And then he buried an audio recorder. So yeah, I think that was the episode.
Have you guys ever put things out, just toys or anything out, and have tried that and have seen if they've been moved or anything?
We did that in Bluff Creek. My friend Ron kind of did the whole gifting idea, and he set it up. Something did move it, but I think we're pretty convinced that it's that it was a bird that kind of came in and kind of moved everything. So we're not sure what that was. We don't think it was a Bigfoot at this point, but it was kind of interesting. Like, man, it got us excited for a while. Like, man, something moved it, but more than likely it was a bird.
Here's an idea. So we're not Bigfoot researchers, so any ideas that I come up with and you steal, I'm totally okay with. But here's an idea, and it just popped into my head. So the only really good Bigfoot footage that we have is the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Right.
So why not try to replicate exactly what they were doing? And here's why I say that. They were on horseback. So maybe the horse smell disguised some of the human smell, which might have scared off a Bigfoot. They were also using a very old camera that is not digital, that doesn't probably make a humming sound or any kind of weird thing. Because a lot of people think that Bigfoots are actually afraid of electronics. So what do you think about that, Tate?
The whole electronic thing?
Just
everything,
trying to replicate what they did.
I know. I think
horseback, have an old camera.
Right. I think that's definitely easier said than done. Getting all those things won't be hard to do. Oh my God,
yes.
They
will be very hard to do, especially the horse.
It's definitely a worthwhile technique to try. Because it's at the end of the day, it is a type of research method, to see what works and what doesn't.
It worked.
I would think in any case, whether you try it or not, it would just still have to be right place, right time kind of thing. I think with the Patterson,
luck of the draw.
Yeah, because with the Patterson-Gimlin film, there was a few factors. They were Bob and Roger were on horseback. That was one of them. The other thing is too, they were downwind of Patty, so Patty wouldn't have smelled them. Also, it was on a sandbar, so the horses on there wasn't rocks like there is today down there. It was all sand, so it's going to be a lot quieter. And I think at the time Patty was actually drinking water, so you have all those combinations. She has the creek in her ear. The horses are on sand, and Roger and Bob are downwind. She can't smell them, so I think they just spooked her, and that's what happened. But there's been talk recently with other people about the horses being a thing, because I interviewed Bob and Kathy Strain, and they were doing a horseback trip, and they had some stuff happen. And then you think about Ron Moorhead, how they got in there. They were all on horseback. The Sierra Sound. So I think there's something to the horses. I don't know what it is about it, or if there is anything, but I think it does warrant more investigation if there's something to it. It would be really cool. I would love to plan a horseback trip and somewhere in California or Washington or something, and just see what happens. And
that is so. Yeah. Let's go horseback riding when we're out in Oregon next month.
Maybe. Okay.
We'll need somebody there with us.
Yeah. So, Tate, do you think the Patterson-Gimlin film is the most compelling evidence we have?
I would say so. I think it is. I think it's 100% real too. There's always the debate whether the film is fake or not. Did Bob Hieronymus wear the suit? Did he not? Is Patty a costume? Is she not? There's this whole debate still, but there's more proof providing that the film is real than it's fake. There's still a lot of issues with where did Roger send we know Roger sent the film up to his brother-in-law Al Dialli to have it processed, but where did Al Dialli have it, the film process and all this stuff, and the kind of the time frame of them sending the film out, that's a little off sometimes. So there are these different things, but when you actually see the film, and then you have like Bill Munn's talking about Patty, and then you have like the tracks associated that have been looked at by Jeff Meldrum, you can't really fake those. And over some, what is it, 56 years now, they still haven't been able to replicate the costume. And then, you know, as far as like pieces of film footage back in the 60s that are scrutinized, you know, year after year, you got the Zapruder film, the JFK assassination, then you got the Patterson-Gimlin film. Like, how many eyes have seen that? How many people have been looking at those films? And still to this day, the PG film is not debunked, but it's not 100% proven real either. But again, it's still leaning towards it being real than fake.
Right.
So, do you ever get tired of answering the question that you're not related to Bob Hieronymus?
No, I kind of find it funny, actually.
Yeah.
So the audience, they're not related. So
no, it's we're not.
When I first heard your name, I was like, I looked at Tim. He's like, he's not related. I'm like, okay.
If you're ever like in a group chat with me watching like a live thing on Bigfoot or something, you always have like a couple people teasing me like, "Hey, it's Bob's nephew or Bob's grandson or something."
It's not a popular last name.
Well,
it might be somewhere, but yeah.
I've heard a few. Well, I haven't heard it. I've seen it a few times, but you know, that's just in the general world. But in the Bigfoot community itself, there's not really anybody doing Bigfoot that I think is more as prominent as me or known as me with the same last name, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're the only one except Bob.
Bob Hieronymus.
I don't think we've ever had a Tate before either. That's a cool name. I like your name.
So two unique names in the Bigfoot community. And so it's a blessing and a curse. I'm hoping to turn the Hieronymus name around and make Hieronymus. Let's make Hieronymus great again.
There you go.
Well, you're doing a good job at turning it around for what you're doing. So, last question. Well, we have two more, but what advice do you have? And you're younger researcher or person who's involved in the subject. What advice do you have for people who, new researchers or people just want to get involved in the subject? Do you have any advice?
I would say, people can kind of get very eager and impatient. So be patient with yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously, but enjoy what you're learning. Also, just be careful kind of what you read and watch on TV, because not all of it it's not what you see. It's not it's not all real, There's something behind,
so important.
And just kind of just kind of trust your judgment and try to go with your gut, but just be careful what you read. And like I said, just enjoy what you're doing. Don't take it too seriously. Have fun with it, but take the research seriously, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because the patience thing, I think, is super important too.
Yeah, because it's not, if you get people who just want to go out there and immediately get something, but that's not how it works, because 9 times out of 10 you get nothing.
Yeah,
and
it's
so
not the gift that keeps on giving, for sure.
No, and I think people can kind of get a little burnt out on that. And the other thing I will say too is, like, when you get more involved, I'm not saying everybody in the community is like this, but there's a lot of cutthroat type of people in this community. Don't let them drag you down.
Teenage girls. They are like teenage girls.
Don't let them drag you down, because I know people who have left the community because of people, how they've been treated and stuff. So don't let that discourage you, because there's actually people out there who want to help you and have your back.
Yep.
Well said. I think there's more that than there are people who are negative, but you just got to kind of weed through the negativity. So that's good advice.
So here's a question, Tate, to kind of wind things down, because we're already running out of time. But we want you to tell everybody, how can they follow you?
So yeah, you can follow me on YouTube. Tate Hieronymus, Tate Hieronymus. That's my YouTube channel.
Cool. Are you
Keep
on
up to date with
Facebook,
there.
Twitter, Instagram?
I'm on Facebook. Yeah, Tate Hieronymus on Facebook, Tate Hieronymus on Twitter, or X as it's called now. So that's where everybody
I don't know
can.
if I'm friends with you on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm friends with Tim, but you got to send me a request there.
I'm serious.
Yeah,
Like,
what's
I'm
wrong?
looking for you right now. Am I?
Well, there's not Bob.
Oh, here you
not-
are. You're popping
yeah,
up.
It's not Bob Hieronymus. It's the other one.
I know.
Yeah, his nephew.
His nephew.
Tate's like, I don't want to be friends with that crazy lady. But I just sent you a friend request.
But yeah, so people can just just track you down on all the socials.
Yeah, pretty much. You can find me wherever.
Cool.
Good.
So
and guys,
that's
check
where you
out
can find me.
go to YouTube. I mean, there's some really cool. I mean, it goes back. It's not like he just started this yesterday. So he's got some really good films and videos on his YouTube channel.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
just
a
put out
collaborative effort. So
Southern California episode, and that makes it 8 episodes of the SABE series. And then I have another one coming out on the 20th, which is going to be 9 episodes.
Wow.
So
you're busy, Tate. You're
I try.
a busy boy. Yeah.
I was looking at it and I was like, I can't believe it's already been a year since I filmed the first 4 episodes. And that was, time flies. It really
He's
does.
busy.
Yeah.
We need to be more like Tate.
yeah, we try.
Yeah.
So.
But it was so awesome having you on the show, Tate. Thank you so much. You were super interesting. And it's so nice to have a young person in with like all your refreshing aspects
Right.
and views on things. So we appreciate you, Tate, really.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
All right, honey.
You're welcome. Thanks so much, Tate. We'll talk soon.
Take care.
Sounds
Thank you so
good.
much. Oh, Tate's so cool.
He is cool. Yeah.
I like Tate. I'm
He
gonna have
is
to
cool.
check all that stuff out on
Yeah,
YouTube.
he's got a great YouTube. So
Yep.
again, guys, make sure you go, type in Tate Hieronymus, and you'll be able to find him. It comes right up on YouTube. It's probably same thing on Instagram
Mm-hmm.
and Twitter or X. And as Tate mentioned earlier, I think he doesn't do a ton on Facebook. Actually, he might not mention that here. I might have heard him on another podcast saying that.
Right.
But yeah, so check him out. It's really it's fascinating. It's cool. It's just refreshing, like you said.
Yeah, it is.
And he mentioned Alex and Eli a couple times. So that's Alex Petikoff and Eli Watson, who are filmmakers. They do some things with Small Town Monsters and on their own, and they're cool. They're our peeps too. So we love those guys.
Yep.
And a lot of good people. So
Yep.
you guys, thanks for joining.
Thank
and
you so
tuning in.
much. Merry Christmas if you celebrate. Happy New Year. But we might see you before the New Year. So
Yeah.
might save that one.
Yep. See you guys later.